So, and if there's no light, it means, okay, there you go. I can hear it, yeah.
So we keep your mics off unless you're.
Got it.
Yep.
At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Oroville City Planning Commission to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Flicker, Commissioner Britton, Commissioner Chapman,
Here.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Here.
Commissioner Sears,
Here.
Vice Chair Durling,
Here.
and Chairperson Robison.
Here. At this time, will everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. At this time, I'll give instructions to individuals who wish to speak. If you'd like to address the commission at this meeting, you're requested to complete a blue speaker card, filling out which item you wish to speak on and presenting it to the clerk. When I open the public hearing, I will ask staff to introduce the item. The applicant will have time to speak on the item as well. We then open the public hearing and receive comments from the public. After that, we'll close the public hearing and limit discussion between commissioners and staff, and decisions will be made. First item, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on any subject that is not on the agenda but is related to the Planning Commission. I believe I have one card here from a Bill Spear who wished to speak. Please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name's Bill Spear, and thank you for this opportunity to address you this evening. The reason I come here this evening is I recently purchased a building right next door, the little Butte Auto building. Had a big mural on the side of it, on an old train. It was in disrepair. We repainted the building and came out really nice. I would like to, if possible, petition to get the mural restored. I have been in contact with Shane Grammer Arts, who done a lot of the murals up in Paradise. He goes all over the country doing top quality work. He's done a lot of community service for our community up in Paradise, helping to bring hope to the people up there. He also works for Disney, and I have a bid proposal for him. I'm sorry, I only got four copies of it, but we did put a substantial amount of finances and energy into restoring the building. It came out very beautiful. It might be a little biased, but it is right downtown Oroville, and I think it would be benefit our whole city to have a top-of-the-line mural restored there, and also to patronize this artist who has done a lot into our community already, and as a way of, he does, like, again, top quality art. That it's a big giant canvas, and I think it deserves a top quality mural, and again, I think it would benefit our whole city. I'm not sure who I give this to, but I'd like to.
You hand it to the clerk when you're done. I have a question for you, Mr. Spear. Sure. So what are you asking from the Planning Commission?
Well, I don't know what the process is to get it financed through the city through the Arts Commission or whatever.
That would have to go before the city council, and then the city council would decide, because anything financial like that, where they're going to put out, the city's going to put out money, they'd have to decide that. And if they want another commission, either the Planning Commission, Historic Commission, or the Arts, then they would, or the Parks, they would distribute it to that committee.
Okay. I went to the city hall today, and they directed me here.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to the city spending money, that would have to be kicked up to the city council, but the arts would definitely, I think, have a say in that, so.
So Bill, on October 8th is the next Arts Commission meeting, and they don't have any grants out right now, but they would probably be the group to start with, because when they open a grant, that's the type of stuff that they fund.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Like I said, they directed me here, and so I'm here.
Is the mural still there? The mural, the old one?
No, we painted over it.
Okay.
Did you take a picture of it first?
I did.
Okay.
And I have a picture of the original painting that it came from, and
Good.
Yeah, only thing we'd control is if there's a use permit, for something like that.
If it fell under the sign ordinance.
Yeah, but I think it was existing.
But that would, the Arts Commission would definitely be where you start with that one.
okay.
So, but I appreciate you coming here, and good luck.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Was there anyone else who wished to speak under public comments on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes for the Planning Commission Meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2019. Were there any, did everyone have time to review the minutes, and were there any comments, changes, additions? If not, I'll open for a motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please call the roll. Oh, totally blanked on the fact of how we do votes now. I'm still stuck 20 years ago. Does anyone wish to change their votes? Seeing none, voting has changed.
Motion carries.
Moving on to public hearing. The public hearing procedure is as follow, which I kind of covered a little bit already. Chairperson opens public hearing, staff and applicant introduce the item and take questions to the commissioners. Speakers are requested to fill out a card and give it to the city clerk. Public comment session will be closed and after people have spoke. And commissioners discuss, debate, and take action. First item under public hearing is approval of minor use permit for beer and wine sales at Chipotle Mexican Grill Restaurant. Turn to the staff to introduce. I do have a question that the language minor use permit for beer and wine sales. Is it actually? Well, I'll let you introduce and I'll ask questions after you discuss the item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and commission members. It is a minor use permit because there's no CEQA issues involved. So it's allowed to be a minor use permit in our code. This item has been submitted to allow the sale of beer and wine at the new Chipotle restaurant being built at Feather River Crossings, which is right there at the off-ramp of Oroville Boulevard and Highway 70. Chipotle traditionally sells beer and wine at their stores and desires to do so at this store. It is also a drive-in, one of their first drive-ins. And they did get a use permit in March, but it didn't technically approve alcohol sales, so this is kind of a catch-up action. Brett Engstrom from liquorlicense.com, representing the applicant, is here, and he has two questions about the proposed conditions, and he can probably fill you in on a number of items about this.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Here on behalf of Chipotle Mexican Grill, we are requesting a minor use permit to allow beer and wine for on-site consumption in conjunction with a new restaurant. Located 325 Oroville Dam Boulevard, it's a 2,700 square foot interior space. It does have a 318 square foot patio adjacent. There's no alcohol requested for that patio. We have a drive-through and a patio. Just doesn't seem to be a good idea. So we want to be safe, no alcohol on the patio. We do have 51 interior seats, 20 on the patio. Our hours of operation, our standard amongst all our restaurants is 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And we will be obtaining or applying for a Department of ABC Type 41 license, which is beer and wine at a bona fide eating establishment. We are thankful of all the hard work that Wes did on the application and the processing. The applicant does have two questions about the proposed conditions. I've got condition number 6, which states applicant shall ensure adequate lighting of exterior areas, including parking lots, to discourage loitering outside of the building. A great idea. We don't have any problems with the idea, except the applicant does not have control of the parking area. We would like to ask that property owner be added to that statement, applicant and/or property owner. That way, we're not declared responsible for something that's outside of our responsibility. I'll give you a chance to catch up if you've seen it. I have it as number 6 on page 3, proposed conditions of approval. Good. The second one was number 8, Applicant will maintain adequate on-site security, both inside and outside the building, to satisfy any concerns raised by the chief of police or general public. Again, no problem with the idea of this condition. We just want to make sure that our camera system, interior and exterior, would help satisfy this. We want to make sure that we weren't required to have on-site security guards. Wondering if maybe we can do a clarification that a substantial camera system and video surveillance will satisfy this condition. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
I'm sure you probably get some questions here. Just so you know, we're too quiet, but after you speak and we close the public hearing, we'll have probably a more in-depth discussion. We may
Sure.
call you back up to
Okay.
discuss it. Any questions for the applicant specifically? Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
commissioners.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and limit discussion between commissioners and staff. Any questions or comments?
Don't we normally do like a public need necessity for new licenses?
Well, that was, yeah, and my question was gonna be kind of when I brought up the minor use permit, my question was actually gonna be if they've, so you haven't put in the application with ABC yet?
The application is pending with ABC. If I may clarify.
Sure, please.
Good question on a PCN letter. It is required from the jurisdiction, from the city or county, when it is either an off-sale or a bar license, and it's either over-concentrated or high crime. With a restaurant, type 41, type 47, if it is either high crime or over-concentrated, the PCN letter is written by the applicant. So if it's a bar or off-sale, you would be asked for a PCN letter. Good question. It's a fine detail a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, I guess some of the restaurants we've had before have technically had a bar in them. I think that's why we've been, but because my question was gonna be whether it was in a different census district. Because almost every liquor license that comes, you know,
Public necessity.
Yeah, AM, PM, catty corner to there, went through here, so.
yeah.
for that.
An off-sale, yeah, exactly.
Officer Stott will still he reviews all ABC applications. So that will, he will have he'll still have a recommendation on this.
Okay, great, thank you. Regarding the, meeting the security requirements, to address concerns from Chief LaGrone, did he specify any opinion on what he meant by that? It would just, would security cameras work?
He did not, and I believe security cameras would suffice, but we can, during the process of the review of the application, Officer Stott will weigh in on that as well, and he'll clarify that, their position on that.
Okay, well, if we clarified that in the conditions of approval now, and then that wasn't okay, that could be an issue. So should we not clarify that now, or?
I would do it pending, I would
Okay.
keep it pending his
Sure.
his concurrence on that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Regarding the lighting, was there any issue with changing the wording to the owner of the, okay.
It's their lease boundary that they have between whose responsibility. Doing and/or is a good way to make sure you're covering both bases, to make sure it gets done one way or another. And I believe they have a photometric study that was done on the entire site, which would satisfy that requirement.
I don't know how many times you have to hit this button to get the. So if the wording on the conditions of approval were more, does it need to be more specific than property owners? Because you were talking about a lease of whoever's responsible, should it say the party responsible for the parking area, or?
No, property owner and/or tenant would cover both ends of the equation.
Okay. apologize for this alarm. Were there any other questions or comments? Now it's off. Seeing none, I'd open for a motion.
I'll move to approve minor use permit UP 1905, or actually adopt resolution 2019-12. Is that correct? With the amended section, item 8, does say that the applicant and/or owner will maintain adequate on-site security,
Or
both inside and
you
outside.
mean the lighting?
Yeah.
The exterior
Oh,
lighting?
exterior lighting, I'm sorry. Item 6.
Just to clarify it, because what I have, and you can tell me if just so moved, number 6, applicant and/or property owner would be the change. And then number 8, substantial surveillance and camera system will suffice. Added in parentheses, pending. Pending ABC or OPD review.
Right. To that.
That's my motion.
There's a motion, is there a second? There's a motion, a second, any questions to the motion? Please open the voting. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Voting is closed.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Always happy to be coming to town, so thank you very much.
When do you hope to open? Sorry?
I'm sorry.
What's your opening date, estimate?
I'm sure they'd like to be open now. I drove by the building today. The facade looks great. I think they still have some tenant build out to do inside, so I would say in the next 45 days, hopefully.
Okay,
Hopefully.
great.
I mean, yeah, something always pops up, but we would like that.
Can't wait.
Great, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to regular business. Next item is South Oroville rezoning workshop. Planning Commission will conduct a workshop reviewing current zoning in the South Oroville area. Staff?
Yes, thank you. This item is an initial look at potentially rezoning portions of the South Oroville area, which was annexed to the city in 2015. We've come to the Planning Commission because we hope and believe that some of you were involved in that annexation process and the zoning creation at the time. And that we hope you have some valuable insights for that. Some of the reasons that we're suggesting a comprehensive look at rezoning in the area include the annexed area has always had a higher crime rate and lower property sales tax revenues, so it's always cost the city more to provide services than the revenue that the city derives from it. Changing zoning or looking at the zoning is a good reason to try and encourage reinvestment and new investment in the area. So that's one purpose. The current zoning doesn't reflect market conditions. There's been a lot of changes in the commercial activity, and a number of commercial entities have been zoned into MXC or other zones and have become non-conforming uses and having difficulty changing or expanding their existing uses. The commercial zoning along Lincoln and Myers appears a little bit disjointed. And does not at all encourage multifamily housing, which is in a state of acute shortage, and we think this might be an opportunity to zone some of those corridors to encourage multifamily development. The residential lots are all zoned R1, but many are smaller than the 5,000 square foot minimum that the zoning code requires, and many of them are narrower than the 50-foot width that the zoning code requires. Up on the wall behind you, this map with all the green rectangles shows how many residential lots are actually below the 5,000 minimum and are zoned R1. So there's a large number of them. So this makes placement of a home wider than 34 feet across very difficult. It also makes putting the one covered parking spot that we require on each lot in there as well difficult. It's a challenge. We have several inquiries also about putting homes on MXC lots, commercial on R1 lots, and other uses on lots that are improperly zoned for those existing uses or proposed uses. Also, the alleyways are not maintained. There looks like 18 feet wide alleyways. None of them appear to be paved. There are two CSAs that each property owner pays $15 a year into for alley maintenance. And we have not yet discovered how that money is spent. We haven't tried to look into it yet either. So there's too many occupied homes needing significant upkeep and rezoning to allow maybe shorter setbacks or not covered parking or any number of other kind of code changes might help encourage investment in the area. We note also that there's a downtown historic overlay which deals with spacing and planning of a lot of different styles of residential development on smaller lots as well. So these are just some of the ideas and things that we've encountered. We can go over some of the specific issues and problems. Even just yesterday, a gentleman came in. There we go. Who owns the lot right here, which is just in the MXC zone, because this is Oro Dam Boulevard. And there's a row of houses here, and he has a home there and wants to put additional homes, which are not allowed in an MXC zone. So there's a number of issues like that come up. So I'll stop there. Leo DiPaola, Oroville's Community Development Director, is also here, and he is interested in this topic and might want to add some of his own observations. The middle button.
Do you want this? Or-
I'll speak into this. There we go. There it is. Okay. Is this on? Yeah. First off, I want to introduce myself. I've been here with Wes here for about 3.5 months now. Unfortunately, I'm usually not in town on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and so this is the first meeting I'm able to be here. So it's good to make your acquaintance. My name's Leo DiPaola, and Wes and I both work for Bureau Veritas. Yeah, I'm very interested in this. I think there's a real opportunity for the city here. It was annexed in recently, and it's just old. The layout of it's old. The homes are old. It's come into a lot of disrepair, and really, this is the first of many meetings we thought was appropriate and respectful to present to you first, and then move out to some public meetings, and then make another go around, and do the same thing again a couple times, so that we can get some input to help shape how we might move forward. We as planners have a lot of different ways of looking at it. From a academic sort of angle, but that doesn't necessarily always meet what the needs of the city are. And so we like to engage commissioners, council members, as well as members of the public to get feedback on how they'd like to see the space used. And then we try to incorporate that into how this gets reinvented. And then, and nothing's off the table at this point in time. It's really just about brainstorming ideas, getting them down, writing them down, and then coming back and start to synthesize that information into something that is a workable project. For example, the alleys. We talked about the alleys being in disrepair. With lots that are narrow, Alleys sometimes is how you get to your parking. You park in do alley feed parking. That's one way. If you do that, how do you invest in your alleys to make sure they're kept up? Are there ideas that if there's areas in here that, do we want the city to purchase property and make a community park? There's a lot of creative ways to get houses on narrow lots. They've done it for many years. The historic district has some pretty good language on how to deal with that. The building code can deal with setbacks down to 3 feet or less. Typically, it's the zoning codes that create the more difficult setback requirements. So from a building code standpoint, we can get really creative. Planning just has to get on board with what that looks like, and then developers and home builders can be more creative in how they build. Do you want to create an area that you go higher than 2 stories? Do you want to allow a certain footage along either Lincoln or along Myers? Just to kind of orientate it, here's where the proposed Haven of Hope, that's where they're looking at going. Obviously, we have this. Long live.
Sorry, did they change?
No, it's still in that. It's still in that location right here.
Because it was
Yeah, yeah, right up, yeah.
higher than that.
That's.
Higher than
Higher.
that. Higher.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was down here. That's the rescue mission. Oh, that's the rescue mission. Okay, yeah. So they're up here next to Jackson's Glasses right here. I'm sorry, that's my mistake. So there's, and then we have, I believe, Father's house is right back over here. So this is really just a brainstorming session is how we like to present it. If you have ideas on things you'd like to see, it doesn't need to just be today. If you think of something, please email and let us know. We'd like to see a mix of commercial and multifamily along these large corridors. R1 housing as we get back in here. And get more intense as you get towards the larger thoroughfares. That's kind of typical academic planning. We can create some local serving retail or commercial back in different hubs if there's interest in doing that. But it doesn't mean anything has to change us there. We just create the zoning that allows for the change to happen as people are interested. Typically, especially when you look in mixed zoning where you have commercial now available, typically that ups the value of the property and makes it more attractive for people not only who want to come in there, but also for people to sell who may be sitting on assembly in lots is difficult. And so when you have this many individual lots, how do you get those assembled? By creating those opportunities from a zoning standpoint and reducing the hurdles to get to that zoning is something we can do on the front end. But once again, we're looking for ideas. We're looking for people to get input on it and give input on it. And like I said, we'll be here presenting to you. We'll do some neighborhood meetings. We're going to do other public forum meetings. This will start to get some momentum. So hopefully if the community gets involved, we can pack this room and people can weigh in. And then what we do is we take all that stuff and we'll write madly, and then we'll go back and we'll synthesize that and come back and go, here's kind of, we took what people are saying, we kind of came up with some ideas, and then, no, I like that, don't like that, we kind of move it around, and then we go back, we have a few more meetings, and we come back again. Typically, the farther into it, you'll hear people saying, well, I haven't got a chance to weigh in on this, and we've had 8 or 9 meetings. So typically, it takes quite a few meetings to get the amount of input we want to do a thorough, good job to come up with something that a lot of people really like, some people can live with, and very few people dislike is typically our goal. Well, yeah, and especially from those of us who are used to doing this and understand how that works. And so I think that we can think about it one way, but this is only a couple perspectives, and the more perspective we get, you might come up with something that we hadn't thought about, which is a great idea. And I think that we want to encourage the participation as much as possible. So with that being said, we can answer any questions, and if you guys want to come up with any ideas, or if you want to just, you have our emails, and you're welcome to feed them to us as you come up with them. So, if you have any now, we're happy to write them down, and we're absolutely happy if you have any right now. And if not, then please engage us as you come up with them.
Go ahead. I was going to say, is the current setback on the side yards 3 foot or 5 foot?
It's currently 5 foot based on our current zoning, but but you can get down to a 3 or even a 0 lot line in certain,
I know
certain
the county
situations.
had it down to 3 foot
Yeah.
before we annexed, because of some,
Was it at 3 before?
Yeah, it was at
So-
3 before, because of the non-conforming size lots already.
Good.
But,
Yeah, because if you go 3 on both sides of a 44 foot lot, you're still looking at 38 feet, which is a fairly good size home.
And then some of the frontage improvements were waived as far as curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I know one of the concerns, ultimately, we want to see it all developed up, but that can have a negative impact right now if you had somebody wanting to approve that. So I don't know where the line to be drawn there is either.
We'll write them down. So
The
you-
county was
Yeah.
not requiring that.
Yeah, and they weren't, I haven't seen much, if I go back and look at how much work was done there too, not much, that didn't really,
There-
and it didn't really give any incentive for anybody to do it either, though. One thing that I noticed, like a good example, you know where our father's house is? He's kind of gotten traction by, you kind of, what we try to look at is when we try to create hubs, parks do that, new commercial frontage does that, where you can have a boundary line that you can build across from or next to that slowly starts to build that out. If you're in the middle of a block that has a lot of blight on it and you're the one guy who wants to get going, it's tough to get moving because you want to value your product. And so that's a tough thing to get done. So it's, we'll include that in there. I'd be curious to see how many people feel the same way. And it's a way to move forward and to try to create some leverage. You kind of leverage against each other.
Yeah.
You know, you leverage something, someone puts something nice up here, you leverage across the street, and then you start to try to creep back, or next one, it slowly starts to build out. Typically we try to encourage the thoroughfares to have a very little hurdle for creativity along those lines, so people really get encouraged to go there. There's a lot of traffic, and so they have their customers or their tenants, potential tenants driving by, more of a current basis. So that's something we're currently looking at, from Pearl down to where you meet Myers. We're talking with Supervisor Connolly. He believes there may be some funding to get that curb gutter and sidewalk on the west side of that. So that would complete that thoroughfare, which we think would really actually make that a lot more attractive, encourage some growth in that area up from there, so.
I have a comment on that. I surveyed all that, and we were in the process of buying the right-of-way, and the next summer, we were gonna build and the city annexed.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
design all the way up to the VFW.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, and the right-of-way might have been acquired also.
Okay.
Another thing I'd surveyed for over 10 years ago was the length of Myers all the way up to the State Theater to relocate power underground.
Oh.
And then that just died, but
That's quite an
That would've
undertaking.
been
That's
nice for
quite an
there, yeah.
undertaking there, yeah.
Vice Chair
Okay.
Durley?
Do we yet know how many vacant lots there are in the study
I
area?
don't think we've run a census. Has there been a census done that yet? I don't think there has been, no.
You're gonna research and have a map?
Yeah, we'd probably have to do that through through property tax rolls is probably how we'd end up gathering that information.
Our GIS can probably generate a map pretty quickly on that.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to know if there's a cluster of vacant lots.
Sure.
Not necessarily joining each other, but a pocket, of vacant lots where specific things could be done.
To
So it's
facilitate
gonna be
assembly,
important
yeah.
to know- At least for me, it's gonna be important to know.
No, that's actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Yeah.
thing to know, yeah.
And also, abandoned lots, the homes that are abandoned.
Yeah, that's more where I thought you were going with that,
No,
but yeah, okay.
the two things would be
Yeah.
vacant lots and abandoned homes. And then, zero lot line is a good thing, except it reduces the distance between the zero lot line building and the adjoining home. So right now, there's is it 3 foot setback, I think, going on out there, whatever it is?
Well, it was built to 3 foot, but currently the city's at 5 feet.
I know, but what is there now?
All the way down to 3 foot.
Yeah, so you got 6 feet between buildings. So if you go 0 lot line on one lot, then you're down to 3 foot between buildings, which leads to potential fire. Usually you have setbacks like that, to prevent spread of fire.
Yeah, well, all new construction now is sprinkled. Additionally, the building code allows openings down to 3 feet. If you have less than 3 feet, there's no openings. You're required to have a 1 hour firewall construction along those lines. Typically, 0 lot line type situations, so where you have a PD, a planned development there, and you'll have staggered, garage and eave on the front. Go down the lot, and then in the back, the other one, it comes over, and that's typically the type of construction we would see there. And it'd be assembly of multiple lots coming together under one development agreement that we wouldn't allow that where you had just individual builders along a block. We wouldn't allow that in that case. They'd have to cluster that together in order to create a.
That's why it's important to know
yeah.
which lots are vacant and which ones have abandoned,
Yeah.
because you can start the process that way. You know, if somebody acquires 3 lots and does a little mini thing
Right.
with 0 lot line, and the guy that owns a substandard or vacant or whatever lot near it, you can start expanding and.
Yeah, no, that's
and
a
not
good idea.
Create more problems than.
We actually have had interest from a builder, designer, developer of small homes for just exactly that, so.
And the other question, is there a minimum dwelling size? I can't remember in the city.
No, we don't have
I
a
don't think we have a
minimum. The
minimum.
code minimum is about 170 square feet on the code, but there is no, we don't have a minimum dwelling size in our municipal code at this point in time. As long as you meet all the requirements for sanitation and fire and life safety, you can build them pretty small these days.
Another question I have is, are the alleys actually needed? I mean, do they serve some purpose other than
That
providing
was,
area for junk or?
Our code enforcement officer has heard and isn't sure, but he thought maybe the lot lines had been adjusted so that the owners of those lots also own into the alley, so that the alley is an easement.
That was gonna be, that's the
But it
question
does
I'm leading
not,
to.
it does not appear to be the case with the
I think-
parcel maps. There is an alley there, and they're not part of the parcels.
But to answer your question, unmaintained alleys can become an attractive nuisance.
Yeah, but, okay, so, maybe I didn't ask the question properly. Are you saying that the ownership of the alley is what?
It's
Does
a
the property owner own to the center?
county
Oh,
service area maintains those alleys.
Okay, so it's a public, basically a public
Public
street.
thoroughfare
It's a
right
public alley. So, there is a potential then of going through and eliminating the alley by doing lot line adjustments or parcel maps adjustments and adding square footage to each
You could do that.
parcel. So you
To
increase,
essentially eliminate the alley.
yes. So I think that needs to be looked at very seriously.
Is the trash company picking the trash up out front, or are they using any of those alleys to pick up trash from?
I'm not sure, they can't.
Some of them they can't, I know, that's why.
I think that's the thought originally. I mean, like, for example, in Chico, they do, and actually, quite frankly, the garbage trucks actually demolish the alleys as much as anything else does. I mean, they're really hard on the alleys, you know. Yeah. Yeah, so, but it's, I'm not sure, that's something we'll have to engage in and see what, we're still trying to decide on, come up with some of the focal information on that. That is actually, that's a common thing to do, though. I would caution us, as we have to accept a certain amount of parking congestion if we do that, because typically you're
Yeah.
eliminating parking, rear feed parking.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, you have a vacant lot, or 3 or 4 vacant lots you join. You expand the lots to the center of the alley, which increases the square footage, which allows space in the front then for possible parking.
Yeah,
Or you might not
you'd
have.
increase your front setback to
Right,
accommodate the rear.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know that several of the alleys have been vacated. abandoned. But I've also surveyed through many of those alleys also, and there are garages that the alleys access.
Yeah, that's what I was recalling on, because I actually delivered newspapers almost 30 years ago, I guess.
You can't be that old.
To all the south side. I was a young man. And so I know some of them at the time were being used for trash pickup, and a lot of them are being used for access to garages, but that was a long time ago, and I know since then a number of them have become blocked with
Stuff.
detritus, yeah.
Yeah.
So is this, the research on these kinds of things are going to be done as part of the planning process?
Yes, we're writing everything you guys are saying down here, and we're gonna research all of it, and.
Is it going to be a
incorporate-
grant going to be provided to do this, or is it coming out of the
Right
budget?
now, actually, we're actually looking, it's mentioned here under fiscal, the fiscal side of it. We're looking for SB2 funds, $160,000, which
That's no
is
drop in
pretty-
the bucket.
that's no drop in the, we're only looking for about $25,000 of that would fund the study. So that's, I think that's and so none would be general fund dollars. It would all be grant funded stuff.
Okay, good.
Is
Yeah, I
it-
was gonna say, otherwise it's just gonna be a wish list.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's-
it's yeah, that's the way to, and that would fund it, but yeah, this is great stuff. I mean, this is exactly, we have these meetings multiple times. We write down everything everybody's saying. We research all of it. We kind of synthesize different ways of going about it. We present it back again and go from there.
So I had a question about, there's and I'm a little rusty on exactly where it is. It's either, I'm pretty sure it's on Orobanger. I don't know if anyone else knows. And I think it's either Fallbrook or Burlington in the corner that there's some, so I don't know if it's there where that blue spot on the corner down there is, or if it's the next one over. There's some lots down there, some buildings, old buildings, which pretty much look, I think for the most part, abandoned. But they used to be commercial, like storage, or there was one that used to be a store.
Old neighborhood store.
Yeah,
There is actually one there at, I believe it's Fallbrook and Orobanger Highway.
that's what I thought.
And
Been revitalized.
that is
Where's
zoned,
that?
that
It's
is
been recent
zoned
then.
R1. Yeah, it's recently been open. But the owners came in and showed us that the county had made an exception to allow that lot to be commercial before annexation. So that's
Legal
one of the,
non-conforming now.
yeah.
Yeah, that building was there. I mean, it's been there for a long time. And if it's been
Yeah.
revitalized
No,
and
it's
reopened,
in an R1 zone.
Yeah, right
it's
next
catty
to it.
corner from the blue.
It's marked number 4 on the screen up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was wondering if that's what that was in reference to. But it was, if it's been revitalized and reopened, it's been very recently. But that building, as you know, it was a store a long time. I mean, before I was around.
Yeah.
So,
Well, no, those neighborhood stores and stuff, those were always kind of the anchor for the kids to run down and
yeah.
get an ice cream or.
Well, my
back
question-
then it was picking up other stuff for.
Because there's kind of, that's the number one I can think of, but there's a few spots like that around. But I don't see them, other than when you get over here closer to the Myers,
Sure.
I don't see them represented with the actual zoning. They all look like they're in residential areas.
Well, because when it was, this was all zoned from when it was annexed, this was the zoning. So a lot of those things existed, way back when, and they grandfathered those in as legal non-conforming. If they were to stop use or to be demolished, they wouldn't be able to put those back unless they came and asked to get the zoning changed back to whatever that might be.
Well, I'm really interested in this because I had thought, I delivered newspapers and of course it's been a trouble there. It's one of the reasons, idealistically, why Oroville annexed it was it's been a very troubled. And, but there are areas, there's areas that so much can be done with.
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I've driven most of the blocks, and there are numerous half blocks or both sides of a half a block that are either abandoned or totally in blight, or one person living amongst 8 or 9 lots that are just mostly look like they're just I mean, a 1960s trailer that's not been lived in for quite that sort of thing. So I think there's quite a bit of opportunity. And if we're able to create some
You want to have,
momentum.
you want to have incentive to developers to come in and do things.
Yeah.
So the zoning and all of that, the package
Yeah, well, what
wants to be
happens,
designed so that it encourages.
facilitates the
Yeah,
process,
say,
yeah.
look, developer, in my world used to be, oh man, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna purchase 10 lots. I can get them for nothing. you
Yeah.
know, And tear everything down and do something half decent. And,
Right.
you get 4 or 5 developers doing that, the synergism will change
Yes.
the whole.
Right.
Creates
thing.
momentum very quickly.
And that's not to harp on that, but the reason I focused on the intersection is because, I mean, that's deep in the heart of South Side there.
Yeah.
And I always thought that if they could, if they revitalize that store, which it sounds like, I guess somebody did, and then put a few other things in there, that would be, because there's a lot of people there that walk or bike.
Right, it becomes
in the
local
town.
it becomes
Yeah.
local serving, absolutely.
And then they
There
they
you
could
go.
go there instead of
Yeah.
having to go way downtown or
Yeah.
something like that, or,
Yeah. And then if you get enough there, it also becomes a bus stop and,
Right.
Well, it goes back
to
to the community, store, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Which,
does.
which can be a vital store. I mean,
Well,
we
can.
got, right here in Oroville, we got a couple.
yeah, no, it can,
Over
and I
Great-
think it's a
what's
good
the-
thing.
There are
Haven
actually
Street.
about 3 or 4 small little markets, but most of them are along Myers there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sears?
On these green dots on this map over here, are those all occupied, occupied homes, or are some of them vacant lots, or those are just all the substandard lots, right?
Though, yeah, the ones you have over here, yeah, those are just the substandard. Some, many are occupied, some are vacant, some are abandoned.
Substandard by size you're talking about.
Yes,
'Cause that
44 foot
That
width, less
ties
than
in with
5,000 square feet.
Carl's thing of kind of wanting a survey of how many are occupied, how many are abandoned, how many are vacant.
Yeah,
I
We'll get
also,
that
I
done
feel that
right away.
I feel that our thoroughfares need to be walkable, well-lighted. We're gonna need bike lanes on the thoroughfares. Places for bus stops. And I have 2 more crazy questions. What's gonna happen with the requirement that all new homes have solar?
that's a state mandate. That's not a
yeah.
local mandate.
I
That's a
know,
state
I know.
mandate.
So
Yeah,
how does that factor into this?
it's just part of the cost of construction.
Okay, the other thing is, what about doing tiny homes on tiny lots?
Well, I think the flexible, typically you wouldn't do smaller lots than what you have there, but you might be able to have some flexible zoning that allow you to put multiple bungalow style kind of things with a communal parking instead of having a house with a garage and a house with a garage. You can do that type of thing. I actually encourage that. I like that quite a bit. Let's say you have R1 zoning that allows 7 houses per acre.
Right.
Okay, 7 houses, what's the maximum size house? Probably, say a 4 and 3.
But you could have 20 tiny
So you
houses.
have, yeah, well, so 4 and 3 times 7, you have 28 bedrooms and 21 bathrooms. Okay, what we say is, okay, well, on that property, because we're talking impact now, right? We have impact to the system. You can, in any configuration you want, maybe you can put up to 28 bedrooms and 21 bathrooms. So that could be a bunch of 2-in-1s. It could be, which Paradise lost a ton of 2-in-1s. There's
Yes.
a ton of 2-in-1s at
Yes.
the 800 or 900 square foot kind of range, which are also become more popular now again. And then you can still, everybody has some green space, no fences, communal parking area, and now you've created a little bit of a campus. It used to be the public housing kind of was set up that way, but this would be that nice, right? I mean, but you have that kind of, you pull up, you have the meandering path that goes over here and it goes over here to this one, and that's a nice look, especially when they're done well and you have pride of ownership going on in there. So that's a possibility for sure.
One more, if I may. What's the situation with our sewer system in that area? Is that all on city sewer? Is it a step system? What have they got?
No, I think almost all that is on city sewer, but there is a boundary in there, and I'm not quite sure what that is. That's something
Okay.
we will have to research for you.
It's either city or it's low PUD, one of the two.
Yeah, and we do have, and LOPA's part of the JPA, and we do have EDUs available, so.
I see this as a wonderful opportunity to provide affordable housing but it needs to be nice. It needs
Yeah.
to be walkable, it needs to be bikeable,
Yeah.
needs to be public transportation friendly, and we need more commercial development that people can walk to.
I agree with you. Also,
Substation, post office.
affordable housing also depends on the, audience you're talking to. There's subsidized affordable, which, Section 8 or,
Right.
or any kind of government funded, and there's less expensive market rate housing. So we're talking about both those things because everything east of 70, it's an opportunity zone. So there are more monies available for that stuff, for subsidies, but also because of this, of the price of the property down in that part of town, there are some opportunities for people to create some less expensive market rate housing, which I think a mix of the two actually works very well. So.
Go ahead.
Is the zoning on here, is that the current zoning
That's
of
the-
the city?
That's the current zoning in the city.
Of the city, and that was done as part of the annexation?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
That's when they
a
did the
master
general
look at
plan.
the overall zoning
That's the goal of this
needs
whole,
to be
that,
looked at
yes,
too.
that's the
I mean,
goal
it
of this whole,
needs to be
yes.
integrated into the whole thing.
That's actually the basis for us doing this is the overall zoning of the area, is to look at it and to try to create the opportunities through zoning. There's a couple ways you do that, right?
Talking
If-
about land use zoning, not
That's correct.
setbacks and that, but
No,
just
that's,
straight land use zoning.
that's correct. That's the basis of the general. It'd be a general plan amendment. We create a district essentially out of it. The thing is, you create opportunity by, a lot of times we hit people on the front and the back, right? So let's say right now it's R1 or MXC, and MXC is a tough zoning for residential. So it's zoned MXC. You want to come in and you want to put some mixed use in there or some apartments. Now you have to do a general plan amendment. You have to do a rezone, and you have to do a use permit. So we hit you for $50,000 or $60,000 on the front end to do that. Then you come in, you do that, and now you have an impact to the system, and we hit you for $200,000 or $300,000 of development impact fees on the back end. So by eliminating some of the hurdles on the front end, it allows you to amortize those savings toward the back end, which makes that more palatable and makes it more of an opportunity. And I think that's something that we really want to focus on, is trying to remove barriers on the front end to allow developers to be more creative when they come in and give them more options that aren't bureaucracy heavy, I guess is the best way to say it. But it eliminates some of the hurdles.
That makes me think of something else. What about entrepreneurial activities, like a piano teacher, but the downstairs is the studio, and he has his apartment upstairs?
Yeah, live work situations like that.
Live, work, yep. Art studios.
Vertical mixed use, that's what the technical term is of that.
Yeah.
Hasn't really taken off
No.
up here. Marion Park's working a little bit on it now to try to get that going. It's a great, down where what's happened so far up in the valley, we're Upper Valley, is it was still cheaper to go out than reinvest in. And then with RDA going away, all those incentives that went along with having you go brownfield and redevelop these areas kind of went away. The government's the state government's trying to work on recreating that a bit now, but try to recreate that. We can do our part though locally to help remove those barriers and help facilitate that process. And I think that's kind of where the start of this is to look at it holistically, look at it from a land use standpoint, and then get a bunch of input into what might work within that, and then we come back and we start to put the overlays on it. And I think that's it's a process. It's something we'll work on.
It'll be a multi-step process.
Yeah, 6 or 9 months worth of multi-step process before you get to a
Might
spot.
be actually one of the few processes that outlast me. That's
Yes. Me for sure.
you mentioned Section 8, which is Section 8. Whenever there's Section 8 apartment complexes coming in, it's a very unpopular thing. But sadly, they also honestly tend to be the apartment complexes ended up being the nicer ones because they have to be maintained up to the state standard.
When that's
Yeah,
changed quite
that's-
a bit, in fact, I'm meeting with Ed Mayer in a couple weeks, who heads up the Housing Authority, to talk about that. It's been reinvented, so to speak. They're not building more now. They're taking those vouchers and they're actually finding ways to help subsidize building that actually might work for market rate builders, not just people building in that niche. They can actually to set aside vouchers for development ahead of time, up to 40% of the occupancy. So from banks love to see that you have guaranteed tenants and stuff. And so there's people doing Section 8 first floor, and then regular market rate second and third floor, that sort of thing. And then they're going up to, I mean, up here right now, you could, a 4-bedroom they'll participate up to $1,500. That means that's $2,200 apartment or residence that actually makes that now doable through Section 8. So it's really opened up quite a bit. I've been getting involved in it because I'm trying to help facilitate opportunities, and that's another way to do it. Our affordable housing limits for single-family residentials, $284,000 there's monies available. That's right on our workforce housing number. D.R. Horton was selling those at $275. They didn't take advantage of this. That's one thing they could have done. They actually could have raised the price. They would have made more profit, and the buyer would have paid less for the home than they paid just doing it without the ability to use the subsidy that was available to them. We have another builder who's looking at Vista Del Oro, the last 72 lots there. We've already talked to him about it. He's already researching that because it's now pencils better when that's available, and the consumer actually ends up paying less for the house than they would have. So the government makes up that margin, and it ends up being profit and savings to one or the other. And it works out really well. So there's a lot out there that you have to we have to be very educated staff to be able to find those opportunities and present them when they're available, so that we make it more facilitatory.
Touching that, because I mean, we need more affordable housing and housing, period, both whether it's single family and apartments, because the rental market in this town has always been tight, and then after the fire, it's horrible. So something to keep in mind in rezoning, in doing the stuff on this, is that because, and it's not just Section 8, actually any apartment complex almost always ends up being a contentious subject in this town. And I think this goes along with the idea of, marking down where, abandoned lots and vacant lots are, and whether there's a cluster. And we can kind of keep an eye to an area that might be less impacting on existing residents, where would be a good spot to put high density residential like apartments, because we need more apartments, but they're an unpopular thing. So if we could kind of think about that and include that in our, as you said, holistic approach to this, maybe we could mitigate some of the contentiousness of encouraging some more apartments that come in.
And then also the way we condition them. I mean, some of them, if they're large enough, we can condition some local serving retail or commercial along with the project. And
Right.
we put a little mixed use in there with it, and, which now creates something for the local residents to take advantage of as well, not
Right.
just seeing some new apartments going up, and now there might be a small grocery store or whatever, a barber or whatever it might be there
Right.
that people can utilize, and it makes it more attractive to them that they now have that closer to them. So.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know if, I'm the only one here maybe that knows you. Can you give a little background about your professional background?
Sure, yeah.
Where you come from and
Yeah, so,
what you've done or haven't done,
Yeah,
or
working
wish you
back-
could do, or,
well, working backwards, so I've been here about 3.5 months. I work for a company called Bureau Veritas, where we are the consultants that got the contract for, to do planning, building, and help with the development engineering. Wes works with me. Our building inspector, one of our building inspectors is here as well. We have another planner who's working on the annexations, Mike Wixon, who you guys will come to know as well. Along with that, I actually run the fire rebuild for the city of Santa Rosa. I'm the contract operations manager for that program down there. That's where I am Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. And that's going very well down there. Prior to that, I spent the prior 4 years as the community development director and building official for the city of Chico. Moved up there from down below. I had my own business prior to that. I was doing the same thing, just a small company, 7 people, doing building department services and planning services since 2009. And before that, I was a troubleshooter for a regional home improvement company called Yardbirds, 14 Home Depot style units. I was the guy who came in when a store was underperforming and made it perform again. So typically, manager was gone, and then I would come in and get the inventory right, wages right, and get them profitable again. They put a manager in, and then I'd go from there to another store. So that was kind of how I went this, and then I was a developer before that. So I've kind of been in this business for 25 or so years since college. So yeah, so it's we enjoy it. My wife and I moved up to Chico 5 years ago from Santa Rosa. Kids were out of the house, so this was our empty nest move, and we love it up here. And the North State's been very good to us, and we enjoy it. She's mad at me because as soon as we moved up here 3 years later, I took work back down there. But you know, it's how that goes. But yeah, so it's good. It's been good. This seems to be a good fit for us. I think the city is primed for a real growth time. I think the Measure U is a terrific thing to help service an area like this, for example. I mean, it's, you know, that money for infrastructure and safety and all that is there. It will be there. It seems to be performing pretty well already. So I think that the MSR, in fact, we're going to be redoing an MSR, municipal service review for coming up here that'll help facilitate some things here as well as some of the other past subdivisions that kind of languished based on when the LAFCO wouldn't approve them because they didn't think we could service them. So I think there's a good opportunity for a lot of that. Anyway, that's a little bit about myself.
Welcome.
So, thanks.
Any other comments?
I just got one couple really quick. So I'm all for the curb gutter and sidewalk, but maybe we can work on like a deferral program. But some of these, single family, where the city standard is sidewalks. But if you have curb gutter and sidewalk in the middle of a street where there's nothing else there, it kind of defeats the purpose of the curb
Yeah,
gutter.
we have
Don't
that
we
now.
have
Yeah,
something?
Chapter
Yeah.
12 now has that. If you do any work over $52,000, you have to put it. But right now, it's been a little prohibitive the way it's written because you have to do it on your lot right in front. So if you're doing $80,000 in a remodel, you now have to do your frontage improvements. So let's say, for example, you don't have one of these lots, but let's say you have one going up off of Foothill or that area over there, and you have 150 feet of frontage. You have to do that whole frontage. It's very prohibitive. We're looking at reinventing that where it becomes an in lieu fee you put into a pocket, and then we can leverage that against grant dollars for safe routes to school, that sort of thing, where there's other monies available that we can partner it with, and then do a nice stretch of it all at once.
There is,
That's been
there's, I don't know if this was something that was lost over time and the change of staff or what, but there, 17, 18 years ago, we had a series of meetings and we ended up putting something in the zoning. Of course, we've had zoning changes since then, so I don't know, maybe it was taken out. It's hard for me to remember everything. But we had specifically addressed a rural, for rural areas within the city limits, where you had situations like out on Foothill and stuff like that, where you did development, you had do this long stretch.
Yeah.
But there was, so you had to do a long stretch of sidewalk, but there was nothing on either side.
Right.
And we had had several meetings where we discussed and put something into the code.
I think that still exists in some areas, like
Well, we have to
Where,
research
to try and
that,
deal
Highlands,
with that.
Cannon
to try-
Highlands, Acacia had a specific writing in the code, like in there. There's not a single sidewalk for miles,
Yeah. No, we need to look at, because we've been trying to find a way around it, honestly, because it's really onerous for some people to do. And additionally, there's no real gain is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're out here and there's a bus stop on the corner and this, but you're here and you have,
I mean, if it eventually all gets built out, it's great,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's, especially since it could take, 20 years or more for something else to get added.
Eventually do those things on.
And then they did it in a chokehold.
Well, from a different perspective, I stake a lot of sidewalk, and to just have somebody,
I'm sorry, who are you with? by the way?
I survey party chief with Butte County.
Oh, for Beacon, okay.
I've been there for 20 years,
Okay.
20 plus years.
Okay.
So, when the county owned Southside, I did a lot of surveying there. But just to have somebody randomly put sidewalk in front of their yard with no grades, you don't know which way the water's going to flow. You don't know where a DI is going to go. You're just asking for trouble if you can't do the whole block.
And then, or you run into areas like in Chico and the avenues where they force curb gutter sidewalk and you have 8 feet of gravel out in front because there's no storm drain. You gotta do percolation, so you put all this money into that and the pavement stops 8 feet out beyond that. So, yeah, I totally understand that. And you're right, that's why we're trying to figure a way to, if you want to have a fee, how you accumulate that fee in order to leverage those dollars to get something really done and do it the right way. Survey it, get the grades right, make sure, and that's part of, that's part of doing it right. Or you eliminate legislation that doesn't do anybody good in the case where it's overly onerous and it just may be a bad statute sometimes.
Because the idea was there's a lot of, because a lot of it's been addressed in the last 15 years. But Oroville had, and it still has, but to a lesser degree than it did, huge areas, even downtown, where there was no sidewalks. And like I said, a lot of that's been addressed. But the idea is we want to have the sidewalks and everything. But if you have somebody just putting the stretch in and then there's nothing on either side, it's ridiculous. And we had come up with some alternatives for that. And like I said, we've had a number of zoning code changes since, and I don't know if somewhere along the way it's hard for me to keep stuff in my mind.
We can do some research on that. We can look back.
Take a look. I'd be interested to see if you find, because I find it hard to believe that it would have just been eliminated. So.
Well, we'll be
Well, the
eliminated without
idea-
participation.
The idea of collecting a reasonable fee up front and putting it in a
Yeah.
fund that draws interest or grows in some way is much easier to manage than trying to go back later and go after everybody to put them all in and
cobble
assess
it together,
everybody.
yeah.
Because then it's a lot more expensive for them.
That's
And
not
it's a
the-
surprise and they hate it.
And that's not the appropriate use of an assessment either. I agree with you totally. And also allows when you have dollars, you can go after grants that need matching funds. I mean, I always say that there's a five gallon bucket of money over here that you don't need matching funds, and there's an ocean over here if you have funds to match to get grant money, and there's a lot available. And the city's actually done, to be honest with you, done a pretty bang up job of getting grant money. I'm honestly pretty surprised at how much grant money has been given to the city, and so they're doing a good job of getting it. And I think the more match funds you have, the better off you are. But Safe Routes to School is a great one because they will give you a lot of money if you have, and I think that's only 15% match funds on that. And you can get a lot that puts in all your curb cuts, helps you with curb gutter. So that's the whole thing, is to give kids safe way to school. And so the state really invests in that pretty well. So if there's ways to get there, and it's just being creative on how you can accumulate those funds to get them to match. Yeah.
I believe on Lincoln too, we've done a CMAQ, condition mitigation air quality for a sidewalk.
Okay, for that right side.
Yeah.
Okay, or the
next
west side.
next year we should complete up to 7-Eleven, so there'll be a big stretch.
Okay, good. Oh, right on, all the way up the hill there. Okay. Oh, terrific.
And then down from Las Plumas down to
Maybe that's what Bill was talking about.
Robinson. Yeah.
Connolly was talking about. Yeah.
So I think when we did the 2030 general plan update, I think that was about in 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we started
probably
late
about
9. and then,
2009.
So when's our next general plan update due?
We're doing a housing element next, we're gonna start working on the housing element next year, was it? And we'll have to look at it.
Oh,
I think
about
it's
every 10.
coming up. You have to start, you have to do a.
I think it's about every 10 years.
Yeah, you're supposed to do an update every 5. It's pretty cost prohibitive
Yeah.
for many. I mean, the vast majority of cities, it's very cost prohibitive to do that. So typically every 8 to 10 years, you get a big push because people are like, we're behind and we got to catch up. Right now, the MSR needs to be done and the climate action plan needs to be updated. Those two we're behind to the point where when we want to put projects through LAFCO, they're gonna ding us on those. So we have to, those are probably the two they're gonna hit. They also both apply to the
General plan
update,
update.
general plan update as well. And then this is in the 2030 general plan, and then we'd be going back. This would really be the kickoff of when we once we get to the point of wanting to come forward, if we get agreement to move forward and get direction to move forward with it. This would be the kickoff of that with the MSR, the climate action plan, and then this coming along, which is quite a large area of a rezone. That would really push the update for the whole. I mean, it would make sense. We'd have some economy of scale there.
And my last
It's
question.
just expensive.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I know it. And we invested, I don't know if any other commissioners here, I think it was just you and I, were you here? We did the 2030, but yeah, a lot of workshops.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of workshops, a lot of time, joint city council, planning commission meetings. I mean,
25 meetings, all like that. There's a lot of meetings that go into that stuff.
yeah, no.
If you want to get, but you need it, they're valuable, yeah.
That was my, I think, I don't remember.
What about a
Well, no, but I mean,
You
prior
were,
to you,
yeah,
I was,
you
yeah.
probably were, yeah, that was probably second. So the other quick question is Elgin Street and Fort Wayne Street on the west side of Lincoln. Those, yeah, right there on the west side, yes. So those two streets are absolutely, almost non-existent. And I was told that there was some kind of exception at one time where the county wasn't maintaining those.
I learned this morning from our code enforcement officer that the entire left half, that back half of both of those streets are private, actually private streets now. So that's not reflected in this, on these maps. So we have to look into that for sure.
Yeah, the streets are, just monster potholes. They're almost, I know it's even made the news before because they're, and then, so it'd be nice to get some improvements on just those streets, just for health and safety.
What we also find sometimes if you make investment into some of that infrastructure, the people coming behind it, Chico did that on First, Third, and Fifth Avenue, where they went the full stretch from between Esplanade and Mangrove, and they put curb gutter sidewalk and redid the roads in there. And then all of a sudden you see those three avenues, a ton of investment went in there. Just from pride of ownership and the opportunity, so it kind of created itself. So they had some money, they invested in that. The rest of the avenue has not been looked at since that's 20 years ago almost now, since it came in. But those areas that they did do it, they immediately saw a return on the investment. So you have to pick those areas. Those are the thoroughfares. Those are the ones with the lights, right? So they said, okay, we're going to do these three, and it worked out real well. So it's picking your spots and trying to participate in that as well.
Commissioner Sears, was that from your previous, you're up for request to speak? Was that from your previous time? I don't know, it disappeared for a while and then it came back.
I put it up and
Commissioner Gurley?
This kind of to the commissioners and to you. At some point, I would like to have an organized tour of all of us. And it could be advertised so that we can, it's like a public hearing tour.
Yeah.
I've done those in the past.
That's a good idea.
When I worked for the city of Sacramento.
In other words, let them know we're coming.
Yeah, it's in the paper,
Yeah.
It's
We
a-
typically would do that in the second round. We would do
But at some point, we
a
all
good
need
idea.
to see it
yeah.
together.
oh yeah, creates perspective
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we need.
Any other questions or comments?
We do really appreciate your input. I mean, I think Wes has got 3 pages of just brainstorming, and that's how it starts. And no idea is a bad one. They're all good ideas.
Glad to have the
And
opportunity.
more people, so we appreciate
I
that.
appreciate your work, so.
So,
Are we going to schedule a study session?
yeah, what we thought we'd do is we're probably gonna, the next thing we'll have a couple more public meetings, and then we'll start some study sessions after that. We'll do, we're probably gonna do a neighborhood meeting, and then we'll do announce a public meeting for here, hopefully get some people in the next time, and we'll play it up. We wanna make sure we get the funding. honestly.
Right.
Before we go we don't want to get out over our skis. But once we do, and we feel very confident in that, by the way. We do that, and then, yeah, we will for sure. This is a process we want everybody to buy into. We want people to participate. We want people to feel good about the solutions that come out of it. Like I started with, it's something you hope to come out with, and most people like it. A lot of people can live with it, and very few people don't like it. I mean, that's the goal, and you know. Sure.
And I think if we give them a lot.
I think you get some of that. I think what you'll get is you'll get the you'll get if we create the right zoning, we'll create some opportunity. We'll get some people with to inject some financing into it and to create start developing it, and then we'll get people who want to stay in the neighborhood who will now see a reason to invest in their property, and they will do that, and that's the goal. And you create momentum, and over a period of, it is 10, 15, 20 years, you see a wholesale change. But
There's a very passionate group of people that live in South Oroville who have been thirsty for, active involvement, and it's a very complicated path that the city has with South Oroville, and the annexation was a long time in coming. I advocated for it prior to being on the planning commission, and but it was also difficult because of the fact that it was the amount of money that the city needed to be, to justly take care of Southside, which it had not been taken care of. But the amount of money that it disproportionately took, and what the city didn't have. And then, but there is a very passionate group of people there that are really, and if we could really get engaged with them, and they see that there is a proactive effort by the city, and they get a positive input and feel heard, and are involved and start seeing results, I think it'd be a good start to something.
Yeah, and if they're able to participate in the process too, I think that's a big part of it. So good. Well, if you have any other questions, I appreciate your time, and
Thank you.
And this is a great start. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, moving on in the agenda, director's report. Wes?
Yes. I'd like to note, the slides disappeared. Yeah, I've got a couple more I just want to highlight. I'd like to note again that this point at the bottom of the study area is not currently in the city, and it is what we're calling the South Lincoln annexation area. And we are moving forward on that. We'll be starting to have some neighborhood meetings soon. And Leo mentioned a gentleman named Mike Wixon is here to help us do that.
Is that, you said that south area there, because I don't see the actual boundary. Is that from Olives down, or is it just that very tip? Oh, okay, I see it there.
There is the blue
Right,
map
okay,
you have
it's
in front of
Midora
you there.
Street down.
It's on the
Right.
screen, yeah. That's all proposed for annexation, at least at this time. We haven't studied it all, but there's 27 parcels there. And that includes the rescue mission.
What is the assessor's parcel map included? Is there something?
Oh, that was just sort of an example to show that these substandard lots, they're not too much smaller than 5,000 square feet. Most of them are 4,750 square feet, but they're still too small, and then a lot of them are half size. So that was just to show typical block there.
It's not really the square footage, just
The frontage, yeah. All right, so I have just several quick items to mention. Leo talked about this Senate Bill 2, SB 2 grant application. We did file that last week, and we have heard from Housing and Community Development today that they received it and they're starting to evaluate it. This is a $160,000 grant application to help expedite housing development in our community. Every small city in California, if they apply, is entitled to $160,000, and we have applied. The breakdown, Leo mentioned some of that. We're gonna spend we're planning on spending $75,000 to perform outreach to owners of parcels where they have approved tentative subdivision maps. There's some 2,000 plus homes that had been approved prior to the recession. We're going to reach out to them. $45,000 would be available to help if those that are interested in reactivating those expired maps, they're almost all expired, with studies, CEQA updates, Corps of Engineer and fees and things like that. So 45,000 is in there as a potential incentive. Leo mentioned 25,000 is set aside for this South Oroville study. And as you folks have mentioned, this is a really good opportunity to build new housing quickly and lots of good housing. And then 15,000 for the Wilbur Road annexation, or sorry, it's a sphere amendment at this time. But there's also the Oroville specific plan that's out there. So we want to take a look at that and see how likely that is to being reality as well. So that's what the 160,000 would be used for, assuming we get it. We've received a tentative subdivision map extension request for 1 year for Linkside 2, which is the southern half of the property that D.H. Horton is building. So they want another 1 year to get that ready to go, to expand there. This will be coming to you for review and or approval on your next meeting, October 24th. The map expires December 10th. On October 1st, the council agenda has an item to ban or restrict the sale of flavored tobacco products. I'm sure you've all heard, if you listened to the city council discussion last week, they've directed staff to move forward with some kind of an ordinance doing so. This would involve changes to Title V and to Title 17, so before the council can act on it, you folks have to look at it and review it. So that will come before you on October 24th as well, after which it would go to the city council for a first reading and then a second reading, with the goal to have it enacted on or about January 1st.
So that's an outright ban?
The council has not stated what it would be. It's the option in the staff report is for an outright ban or to limit the sale of flavored tobacco products, which includes vaping and any flavor that's not tobacco, to smoke shops. And
That
there's
was the
5 smoke
recommendation
shops.
we had made, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah.
We already it
Back
came
in
before our board once
2017.
already.
Yeah.
Was that dropped or continued, or, I mean, it just?
Well, that's
ended?
what I was wondering, that's why
The applicant dropped it, I believe, because we continued it, and then the next meeting,
I thought we'd sent
it was
I thought
removed.
we'd sent the recommendation on to
I
city
don't think
council.
so. I think that was where we were going.
No,
but
maybe
we
they
had a
did.
second
Maybe they
meeting.
dropped it before they were hoping
We
to
did.
head off the recommendation, I
We
guess.
had it continued, and they dropped it. The meeting that was supposed to be continued.
And there was a fee associated with it too, which has been dropped.
Flavored tobacco.
Yeah. The applicant dropped.
One thing we've noticed as we're going through.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, one
Oh,
thing,
yeah, the
one-
emergency shelter. That's also on the October 24th agenda. Yeah.
We've also noticed in the past there's been where an item was controversial, it was brought forth, they'd withdraw and then they tried to reinvent it so it skated, so it was allowed by right. And so we're running into some of those, and we're I think you'll find that we've been. We're new here, but we're not new, I guess is the best way to put it. And so we could kind of gather those things in and make sure they stay on the path. We're about helping people get as far as they can. Some projects just require some conditions, and so it's important.
Yeah, they're working on that, yeah. We've had a couple of meetings about that with them, so we're anticipating seeing a draft soon. Also on the October 1st council agenda is an item for the council to consider potentially joining the Butte Power Community Choice Aggregation project, which Butte County and Chico are combining forces to form their own power company, which would provide at least 33% green power to their ratepayers. And that's on the agenda for the council.
Basically a public utilities district for the.
A JPA, but it does have to get approved through the Public Utilities Commission as well. Well, there are 19 communities that have done this so far. Yeah.
That's another thing I've been saying that we should do for about 20 years.
So that will be on the October 1st agenda as well, next Tuesday for the city council, yeah. And the agenda will get published tomorrow.
Along that line, how does that affect homes that have solar? How does that affect the production, which the electricity goes?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Goes to PG&E.
They sell it to
Yeah, it doesn't. Basically, we would be purchasing clean power, green power, so either wind or solar power from solar farms, and doing it as a co-op that would then sell it to. Then it would be on your. You would choose. You would be a choice you make. You don't have to choose it, but you can choose it on your monthly bill, and it would be typically a savings of. At the low end, 2%, high end, probably 5 or 6%. But as a whole, as an individual, it's not a ton. But if you look at the whole, it actually is quite a bit. And they're doing well. Not one has failed. Not one JP with the CCA has failed. They run. What happens over 10 or 20 years, you get quite a surplus, and then you can start leveraging the surplus. Some are even. There's a couple at the point now where we're actually looking at buying their transmission lines in their city limits back from PG&E, so they then have their own enterprise.
They're much more responsive to their customers.
Yes.
I'm still,
But that wouldn't affect the solar. It wouldn't affect someone who already. Let's say you have a true up of $100 a year. It's probably not something that would be that. I mean, you would probably do the amount to equal your true up. But if you already have solar and you don't have much of a PG&E bill now, it would be a philosophical choice more than anything else at that point in time, because it doesn't affect you. It wouldn't help you or hurt you at that point in time.
I believe I heard the state doesn't consider hydroelectric power green either. So they're
Not yet. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They're going to get there on that. In fact, they're probably looking at eliminating natural gas generated electricity as no longer being green, and adding the hydroelectric to it. Especially what you'll find is a lot of cities are going to all electric, meaning you cannot have gas in your home. City of Santa Rosa, for example, is doing a stretch code for that's going to pass. So all new homes cannot have a gas hookup. And it was brought up at a stakeholder meeting. It's interesting because someone had done their research, and they said how much of our electricity that we get from PG&E is actually produced by natural gas. It's 43%. So essentially they're saying you can't get natural gas you can get natural gas turned electricity and we can use it, but we can't just use natural gas straight from the source. So it's one of those interesting political games they're playing. But yeah, they're looking at
You
going.
got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that makes it
Exactly.
fun in the winter when the power goes out and you can't use your oven or your heater.
Right.
Well,
anything.
Well, the big one, it's interesting. It's mostly the the biggest push has been people not being able to cook with gas, which is interesting. But the big thing is you're talking about you can't have a gas backup generator and that sort of thing. And what I'm afraid of with that is people start bootlegging gas in, and that's a pretty dangerous thing. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think it's going to pass down there, which is the climate down there is all for it, and so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because they're going to have some just.
Yeah, we're very rural too with the propane tanks, I'm sure, even in the city limits, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a long time before it gets up here. And the houses that currently have it would be grandfathered in. I mean,
Yeah. And I just don't
unless
see
the state
political
does some
climate.
sort of screwy law, but
Yeah.
And lastly, you have in front of you what I think is the sign ordinance that the state you had brought it to. So that's for a future agenda, is to start talking about getting that updated and moving forward the work you've already done on it.
sign ordinance invading my existence, okay.
Yeah, it needs to be completed though.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to commission reports. Were there any commissioners here who attended any activities or subcommittees that have any reports or anything else they feel they need to report to the rest of the commission?
A few of us went on the museum tour, but I don't think there's anything I'd bring back from that.
That was nice, thank you.
I went on Saturday. You guys must have gone on the Tuesday
We went
one?
on Thursday.
Or Thursday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on the Saturday one. Yeah, it was really nice. Anything else? All right, seeing none, then we will adjourn to Thursday, October 24th, 2019 at 7 PM. Thanks for filling in for me the last two meetings there.
It's my job.